This Week in Politics on KSFY. Good evening, I'm Brian Allen. In just a few minutes, we'll focus on two pieces of Attorney General Marty Jackley's legislative agenda for 2018 that deal specifically with human trafficking and drug trafficking. But we will begin with South Dakota Supreme Court Chief Justice David Gilbertson, who doesn't grant many TV interviews. But I was able to speak to him about a program he wants to implement that he says could save lives and the state money. And I'll tell you why that program may not be happening anytime soon. Inside the South Dakota State Capitol, in the section reserved for the South Dakota Supreme Court, you'll find the office of Chief Justice David Gilbertson and the man himself, who says he has an idea that could dramatically improve the overcrowding situation faced by courts, jails, and even hospitals statewide.
You divert the person into a court where they get counseling. If they are on medications, they have to take them. And oftentimes, if you can get a person simply back on their meds, they'll do very well. And if you put them in a jail long term, that could result in permanent and substantial mental health damage.
What Chief Justice Gilbertson wants to implement is a statewide mental health court system. Lawmakers support the idea of mental health reform to a point.
There was a comprehensive mental health bill passed last year by the legislature based on a proposal that the governor and I brought forward. They passed everything we asked for, with one exception. The mental health court didn't pass. Everybody thought it was a good idea, but the money simply wasn't there.
Earlier this month, during his State of the Judiciary address to lawmakers, Gilbertson again called on them to establish a limited mental health court program to be based in Rapid City as a trial run to see how it would work and if it would work.
The governor felt strongly about it this year. He put it in his budget. But of course, he doesn't have the final say. The Appropriations Committee does. They're the ones that have to balance the budget. So I think it's simply going to come down to whether there's money available or not available.
And it is that issue of money that's giving Gilbertson a sense of deja vu. The state budget has a sales tax revenue shortfall of $34 million that will have the state looking to make cuts to existing programs more so than looking for funding for new programs, like mental health court. But Gilbertson tells me his research shows if the state spent the money to get the program up and running, it would eventually save the state money, beginning with jail costs.
Because you don't have people sitting in jail long-term, warehousing them, and most jails are probably $90 to $100 a day for each individual prisoner. So if you can get them diverted, if it's a non-serious crime, get them back on their meds, get them counseling, and out of the jails, you're going to save money.
And it is not just jails that would see that benefit. Across South Dakota, it is not uncommon to see people with mental health issues ending up in hospital emergency rooms. Gilbertson says if more could be done to help those people seek out the treatment they need and stick to it, it would relieve the burden a lot of hospitals are facing.
I had checked with Avera last year, and they estimate 4,000 people went to emergency rooms in South Dakota last year suffering from drug-related problems. And you can imagine how many of those paid their bill. Not very many.
Having the state's judicial branch out by offering specific services like drug and alcohol court and veterans court is becoming more of a trend nationwide and here in South Dakota. The idea of not just punishing someone, but working to help that person solve the underlying problem of why they committed the crime in the first place. Gilbertson says outside-the-box programs like these and like mental health court allow the person to be responsible for their actions, to get the help they need, while being less of a burden on the state's finances.
The people in our drug and alcohol courts have 1,200 kids. If they had gone to prison at $10,000 a year per child, which is what it costs the Department of Social Services for each child, that's $12 million. That $12 million was never spent out of the taxpayer's wallet because we put those people in drug and alcohol courts instead of sending them to prison. And in a drug or alcohol court, you have to support your family and you have to have a job. And so those people, instead of sitting in prison, costing the taxpayers money, last year earned $3 million in wages to support themselves and their families.
When This Week in Politics returns on KSFY, how South Dakota Attorney General Marty Jackley is hoping to stop human trafficking and drug trafficking at the same time with the legislature's help.